Hey everyone, welcome in to Clayshare Live for the Wednesday. Jess is away, so you have me over at the production booth for a few moments. And then we're going to kick it over to Drew Seymour, who's going to talk to us a lot about the issues, the ongoing issues that we're seeing with ceramic supplies and what kind of things have been, what's changed lately, what hasn't changed, and what we expect to continue. So, without further ado, I am going to kick it over to Drew. Hey, Drew.
Hey, Kev, how's it going? How's everybody doing out there? I hope. Oh, sorry. I'm having technical difficulties. Bear with me. I hope everybody's doing good. We are here at Clayscapes over in the wheel throwing area because that's where my big chalkboard is. And we are going to talk about availability of supplies and supply chain issues, all sorts of things like that. So I'm just going to get into it. If anybody, I'm assuming, Kevin, you can see the comments.
Yeah, I'm getting all
So
the comments queued up so I can feed you any questions that we
awesome,
have.
awesome. So yeah, if there's any questions, let me know. This is a big picture kind of thing. So typically, Jess or I will be focused on, your glazes or your clay or a specific project. This we want to take a step back and just kind of see what's going on in all of the different parts of the ceramics supply chain, basically, and just kind of explain what's happening where and what is the hold? Why is it taking 3 months? Why is it taking 6 months for to get kilns or to get different glazes? So behind me, and hopefully you guys can see it, I've drawn a little mini supply chain thing. And we go all the way on this. This is the supply end. So this is where everything is made, where all of your clay ingredients and materials, glazes, clays come from. And then on this side of the chalkboard, we have our demand side. So this is you guys, when you are looking to buy your products. One thing that I like to explain is on the supply side. Oh, can we move it?
You can move it, but you don't have to. I've got two shots of it queued up, so I've got a
Cool.
close-up shot of the board for when you go back there.
Okay. Typically, we're going to start here. What you guys see when you go online and say place an order. So when Clayshare has a promo and we're running a deal through the Clayscapes website, and you get your 20% off. You go online, you buy it. It takes however long it takes, and then it comes to you. This is the tip of the iceberg, what I like to call. You guys wind up seeing this much. I have chalk. You guys wind up seeing about this much of the equation, right? But in order to get that, say, 2 ounces of Amico underglaze, there are a whole plethora of things that go into that. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. All the stuff that you don't see, all the behind the scenes stuff. And so we're going to start on this side of the equation because the mines is the first step. Clay ingredients like rutile, ball clay, kaolin, iron oxide, cobalt, lithium, titanium, tin, all of these ingredients have to be mined out of the earth, processed, shipped to the manufacturers. So we mine our ingredients. They get sent to the manufacturers who then take those ingredients, blend them together to create, BMix 5 clay and bright red underglaze and elements for your kiln, those kinds of things. Those manufacturers then send that product to distributors like us, Clayscapes, or the end retail end users, consumers like you guys. For example, Amoco and Mako used to, let's say about the beginning of this year, they ceased sales to the end user. So like this manufacturer here, Amoco and Mako, we would eliminate this line because they are no longer supplying the end users until I think they said 2023. And that's just in an effort to try and catch up. Let's see here. So for example, we have our lithium mine, okay? Our lithium mine has employees, and then we have our shipping problems, right? Well, right now, there is a employee shortage. There's a worker shortage for multiple reasons. COVID and I don't know, there's all sorts of different things, but it's hard to get employees right now. So this mine, which normally runs at full capacity, is now down 2/3 its workforce. They can't run enough equipment. Typically, a mine or manufacturer like Laguna or Amoco, they run multiple shifts. You know, they'll run a day shift and an evening shift. They can't do that right now. So if, you know, Amoco needs to catch up on their back orders, they can't run another shift to prolong their work production hours because they can't hire enough employees to do that. And when we take the worker shortage and we exacerbate that mine, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, the workforce, it slows the process down. Now, the amount of time that it takes to get enough material to supply the manufacturer to fill the order is a longer period of time before they get it. And that's on the first stage of things. That's on the very first end. Now, the other side of the mining operation is big tech and big pharma, right? Those ingredients, lithium, tin, cobalt, titanium, these ingredients are also used in flat screen technology. Tin is used in flat screen. All the phones, all your screens, all your TVs, all your computers, that flat screen, that thin technology that everybody likes, that all uses tin. All the microchips in all of your electronics, your cars, electric cars, use lithium and cobalt. And, you know, what's the other thing? Lithium. So, and then we talk pharmacy. So those ingredients don't just go to the clay industry. If anything, we are a tiny grain of sand in the wide ocean of items that are usable throughout industry global. And so, you know, for example, I tried to go and say, well, lithium is not as available anymore, and it's becoming more expensive. So for me, as a distributor, for us, Clayscapes, as a distributor, we say, well, wonder if we can get it straight from the source, right? We bypass the manufacturer and we go to the mine and say, I want to buy a large quantity of your material. You know, what's my minimum order? What's the cost going to be? When you go and call these companies, they're sold out. You know, if I wanted to get lithium, I just keep using lithium as an example because it's the most recent one that I've looked into. But if I wanted to buy lithium from the source, I would have to wait until 2025. That's what they're fulfilling orders that far out. You know, they're selling trains full of one ingredient to the auto industry and the microchip industry, things like that. So that's why we see a raise in price on those special minerals, cobalt, lithium, tin, titanium, all of those things. All those prices are going up and they're becoming more scarce because we're, as an economy, selling more of the technology side of things. So that's them. Now, in addition to that, our mines have to get the stuff from the mine to the manufacturers. So they either have to import it. We've got this whole import-export thing here. This is taking a longer time because there's not enough people. There's not enough people to work on the boats, which means they can't send as many boats. You know, there's not enough people to fill the trains, so they don't send as many trains. All these things, you know, the person shortage affects all the trucking industry and, you know, the UPS, things like that. So then we go from our manufacturer to the distributor. We compile all of the different materials. So we bring in the Amoco from all the manufacturers. You know, this is Laguna, Amoco, Mako, Sim, rolling pins. You know, the manufacturer side. You know, we consolidate all of that to make a good shopping experience for the end user. You know, one-stop shop type of thing.
Hey, Drew, I've got a question for you.
Sure, what kind of question? That's good.
So we've got a question. Why can't we use substitutes?
That is part of it. So right now, there are a number of ingredients like talc, for example. The talc mine, boom, talc, gone. No talc, right? It's one ingredient that there is no substitute for it. There is other talc on the market, but it is chemically different than the talc that we're used to using. So any clay body, any glaze, any slip, any underglaze, any on-go, anything that has talc in it now has to be reformulated, right? Which takes time and resources, and which is why we're seeing a change in clay bodies, a change in slips. Anything that had that talc in it is going to be different now, and so testing is involved. Some ingredients we can use substitutes. We have certain feldspar that has just gone off the market. There is another one that is very similar. So the testing process is a lot shorter because it's pretty close. So we put some things through some tests, and then, you know, everything comes out good, and we say, hey, new formula, and here we go. So substitutes is something that we're always doing, right? So that's where at the distribution level, we stock multiple varieties of multiple ingredients for that purpose. So that is something that already happens. You will notice though that, you know, just if like rutile isn't available, Amoco's not just going to substitute a different brand of rutile and go, that's good, right? Like it's different. And as consumers, we expect a certain level of quality. We expect that things are going to be consistent. And if we start doing substitutions because ingredients aren't available, the consistency, the quality goes down. And then there's another whole barrel of apples that you get into with, with customer complaints and, glazes. Talc is going to affect shrinkage. It's going to affect glaze fit. 5% talc in a glaze, if we switch it to this other talc, it could shiver, it could crawl, it could craze. There's all these things that just a little tweak and it's not the same.
So Drew, is talc, Nytol, one of the ones that's gone?
Yes, Nytol has been gone for a long time. Excuse me, the New York talc mine closed, I want to say 12 or 13 years ago. And then the entire industry moved to Pioneer Talc, which is out of Texas. They have gone off the market. So Pioneer Talc no longer available. There's a limited supply of it, and when that's out, it's out. So, you know, in the meantime, we're testing replacements, things like that. So that, and I have a whole notebook full of glaze chemistry and clay that I'm always working on kind of behind the scenes. But yeah, no, Nytol is no longer available. Pioneer talc's no longer available. Mojave or feldspar, no longer available. Glomax, you know, there's a whole kind of parade of ingredients that are no longer available. At the beginning of the year, rutile was no longer available. Rutile is mined and imported from Australia, at least the brand of rutile that most of the larger ceramic industry use in their products. That rutile comes from Australia. Well, due to COVID, Australia went really strict on their rules. They wanted to completely stamp it out. And so there was very little shipping allowed into or out of Australia. And as a result, rutile was not something that glaze companies could get. Rutile's in a lot of glaze. The Amico Potter's Choice line, they all have rutile in them. So if you can't buy rutile, you can't make any product that has rutile in it. Even if it's the only ingredient that's missing, we have to wait on a ship out to sea to come from Australia, which then has to wait in a harbor to get unloaded because there's a shortage of workers. So there's a shortage of truck drivers. So everything, you know, is exacerbated. Scott is going through a similar thing with their element wire. The wires that the type of Kanthal wire that they use for their kilns, which has been certified, they can't just substitute it because their kilns come with, you know, the certification, this under these specifications, your, you know, seal of approval, electrical, ASTM, whatever abbreviation is used for it. So you can't just substitute for the kiln. And if the elements aren't available, you can't make new kilns. You can't send out parts. You know, I have customers that have been waiting 6 months for elements for their Scott kilns. And they'll continue to wait because they're not selling them. They're saving all of the element wire they can for new production. So there's just all of those things go into, you know, what's going on. Look here. The transportation industry is really also a part of it, right? So if we say we have material issues on this side, all of the lines that connect, all of the dots, trucks, truck drivers. There's new legislation from, I think it's 2 years ago, where the truck logs all went digital. So instead of a truck driver, you know, taking his logs and marking his hours and he putting them in, now it's all digital. That truck driver is only allowed to drive 10 hours a day. If he's 45 minutes from home and he hits 10 hours, he has to pull over and stop. He can't drive anymore. He has to stop, spend the night, spend a certain amount of time down before he can get back up and go. That leads to longer delivery times, but that also leads to increased freight costs because that truck driver needs to get paid for his time. So that time that he's down, that load is an increased price because now he's got to pay for a meal and a place to sleep and all that kind of stuff. And then there's less of them. So if I want to get a truck from Ohio, from Laguna, we have to go out and find out if there's one even able to do it and then fight against somebody else who wants that truckload because there's only so many drivers. So, you know, sometimes we will have an entire, you know, 48,000 pounds of clay. It's ready to go and it'll sit there for a week while we wait for a truck driver. And that's just what we're doing. That's the way it is right now. So.
Yeah, so
Another question?
yeah, I've got a question on since you were talking about kilns and elements. Uh, so Scott is reserving all of the element wire that they can get for new production, but
Correct.
people are going to need to replace elements.
That's right.
So I guess my question are there alternate, like, are there like generic
Yes.
brand elements that you can put in? And if you put those into your kiln and your kiln was still in its warranty period, would you void that out?
So I will say that typically, even if you bought a brand new Scott kiln, right? Brand new Scott kiln, bright and shiny. You plug it in, you fire it for 100, 200 firings in a year and a half. The kiln is still under warranty, and you need to replace your elements, right? They're not covered under warranty. Their elements are not covered under warranty. If you get a kiln shipped to your house and it shows up with brick damage, that's not covered under warranty. If you read the fine print of all of these warranties, and there's a lot of fine print, there's a lot that is not covered under warranty. So if you replace your elements, you're not going to void your warranty. If you replace your elements with off-brand parts, you're not going to void your warranty. If you mess up putting your elements in and they're not the right brand and you ruin another part of the kiln, that's not going to be covered under warranty. So it's just, we have been sending people to, because people do need elements. And so Euclid Pottery Supply House in Canada, they have a section of their business called Euclid Elements, and they make custom elements. So if you have a kiln from 1950, you can call them up and say, hey, I got this Crusader doll kiln. It's a manual. It's 240 volt single phase, however many watts. This is how long the element is. They'll make you custom elements. So anybody that needs like Scud elements, we have been sending them to Euclid because they can fulfill those orders with a different wire. Those elements are probably only going to last half to 2/3 the life expectancy of on-brand elements. So if you got elements from Scott and they last 100 firings, you're going to get elements from Euclid, they're going to last 50 to 75 firings. But you're able to get it, right? And so that's kind of the workaround that people have been using. So yeah, that's the way we've been sending.
Yeah, so I got a couple more questions while we've got you away from the board.
Yeah.
So the talc that's mined in the U.S., is it no longer used, or is it not the correct composition?
It's no longer used. So we've gone from New York talc, the industry as a whole.
Yep.
It used to be industry standard, right? There was one talc that was the most popular. It was the Nytol, the New York talc, white powder, went off the market. The entire industry pivoted to buying Texas talc. That is no longer available. It's off the market. They're still mining it, but that mine is only servicing one customer, and that is the tile manufacturer that bought the mine. So basically, this big manufacturing company came in and bought the mine. And because talc is the way it is, there are lawsuits. And they found that it was cheaper and easier to just not sell it to the public and only supply the tile manufacturing operation that's going to be using it. So there's another talc out there. I think it's like a Montana talc.
Yeah, I've heard the Montana brought up.
And it's talc, it has similar properties. It does the same basic things as a base ingredient, but the chemical makeup of talc, if we go to our periodic table of elements, the chemical makeup of the Nytol and the Pioneer talc are over here. And the new talc, it's not close. The chemical makeup's completely different. So even though it's talc, and even though it's technically should do the same thing in the glaze ingredient, there are portions of that, it has lower or higher amounts of calcium or sodium, and those will also affect the glaze. And so the testing needs to be done.
Now, is that switch to the Montana why we're seeing the light tan colored B mix now, or is that a different ingredient, do you think?
It's possible. It's possible. I do know that EPK, for example, the EPK kaolin, which is mined in Kentucky, I want to say. I know that during the winter months, they don't have access to a certain part of the mine because the machinery can't get there. And so they have to go to a different part of the mine to get the EPK. It's still EPK, but it's dirt. It comes out of the ground. It's a different color over there than over there. And so we see some changes in clay body colors throughout the year just because they hit a different part of the mine. You know, cobalt and copper are also very prone to changing what they look like in the raw state because they hit a different vein and it comes out different.
Yeah. Now, for everyone who's been concerned about the tan color of the B mix that we've been getting lately, I did see a few pieces that just bisqued, and they came out of the bisque looking like any B mix that she's had for years and years. So even though it went in tan, it
Right.
came out the usual color.
Yeah, and that's normal that when it goes in the wet state, when it goes in the raw state, you know, you can find variation. But then in the fired state, it's still white, right? They still fire the same time. They still fire the same thing. So, you know, red clays, you know, the red clays, you see a shift a little bit more often because it's a little warmer or it's a little toastier, it's a little more brown, it's a little more red. That whole formula changes in the raw state. And then when it gets fired, it all fires, you know, that terracotta color.
Yeah. Now I've seen this question come up a couple of times in the group lately, and Marissa asked here tonight, what is the availability of slab rollers tied in with this as well? I mean, I would think
Oh yeah,
it seems like a people shortage on the manufacturing side.
right. And so what we see is I just got a distributor update from Amoco today. There's a newsletter that goes out to anybody that sells the Amoco. And for example, equipment is 10 to 15 weeks out, and that's all in stock equipment, right? So in stock equipment is taking, you know, stuff that doesn't have to be made is taking 10 to 15 weeks to get out. And that's because of the backlog of orders, right? They can't catch up because they don't have enough people, right? They don't have enough manpower. They don't have enough human resources to cope with the amount of orders that they have. We received an order from, I think it was Mako or Amoco. We received a glaze order last week that we placed in at the end of November. And that order was about 50% back ordered, not available. And so that hurts. You know, we live and die on, you know, sales to you guys. We're not, it's not like I have a stash of stuff that I'm holding because of whatever. You know, we're not price gouging. We're just passing it along. You know, anything that's available, we are trying to pass that along. I do know that moving forward, we are probably going to have to pivot how we do sales, you know, how we do promotions and things like that, because the overwhelming customer feedback is negative. And that I know plays a role in how product is sold. And so when the country closed basically 2 years ago at the beginning of COVID, when COVID happened and everybody closed, you know, a lot of places went out of business. I know that we were close to going out of business, and what saved our bacon was you guys, you customers that stuck with us and were loyal. And I know that it's frustrating to wait, to not have responses to emails. We have 2 employees that handle all the orders for the website. It's a lot. And so we are just doing the best we can. And so that's kind of why we're doing this, is I want you guys to know, like, what's the lowdown? What's happening? Why is stuff taking so long? Why do I have to wait 15 weeks for a slab roller that's 4 rods and a bed? And, you know, it doesn't seem complicated, but it is. It's very complicated. And so that's what we're dealing with, is, you know, it's all that backlog. All that backlog. So let me look here. What do we got?
Yeah. So have a question. How much longer do you think it'll go on? Is there an end in sight? I mean,
a year ago, so last spring, I said I was optimistic, and I was hoping that it was going to end at the end of last summer, early fall. I was really hoping school season was going to come back. Schools, which is a big part of our, our customer base, our schools. We sell clay and glazes to elementary, middle, high school, college. They've been remote. You know, COVID has taken everybody remote, and now we're waiting for that all to kind of rebound and come back. Schools have not come back. And so even though kids are in school, schools aren't spending money on clay programs. You know, 90% of my school business is still gone. And so, you know, that's part of the equation. I think that we're probably, fall of 2023, realistically, is when we're going to be back to norm. That's like we're a year away, for sure. It's a year out before we get caught up, I think.
yeah.
And that's as long as nothing else happens. There are things beyond the clay industry that are affecting us as well. So when we talk about war in Ukraine, there's a global marketplace there that it's beyond my, it's not something that I have firsthand knowledge of, but it affects things. You know, prices going up are affected by a lot of different things. The war is one of them. The culture, the other big change that we've seen is the culture of consumerism has changed over the past 2 years. People are used to being home. They're used to being able to DoorDash, do your grocery pickup, place your order online with Amazon or another large retailer, and for the most part, get whatever you want, whenever you want. And the clay industry, which is typically run by a bunch of hippies, has not caught up. I don't know if everybody knows this, but if you go back 10 years, you know, the clay industry, not every distributor you called had a website. When you go to a clay website and you say, oh, it's a little clunky, you know, it's a little behind the times. The ceramics world as a whole is typically behind the times. And it's similar in regards to the fulfillment of orders and things like that. The Amazon industry, the Walmart industry has changed people's perceptions on how they consume products. And the ceramics industry has not. It's not there. It hasn't caught up, and it won't for a number of years. And so there's this certain level. And then when we add on top of that, there's this boom in interest. You know, people are getting into the ceramics arts. We have a huge wait list for classes because there are so many people that want to get out and do something, and pottery is what they want to do. So there's this huge swell in demand from people that are not used to the market. And with the backlog and the way that the ceramic industry is behind, it creates I don't want to be too much of a downer. It creates a toxic consuming environment. And so it makes it difficult on resellers, manufacturers, and distributors to try and pivot to this new way that people are that people need to consume their products, and not being able to do it as quickly or as efficiently or as openly, you know, to the public as everybody would like. And so it's just it's a difficult tightrope that a lot of companies are having to do.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things, you know, I was thinking when you mentioned that you just got an order in from Amoco that you placed in November, and
Yes.
and Amoco in the ceramics world is a sizable company, right?
Yes.
They're
Yep.
they're not one of the little guys in ceramics, but you know, when you look at especially when you do look at smaller, more niche companies, if they, you know, think about they haven't been able to get materials and stuff, they haven't been able to produce any product to sell
Right.
for 6
Right.
months, which means they're not generating any revenue for half a year.
Yeah.
They're going to have to let staff go. They're going to have to let that they're probably going to lose leases on manufacturing facilities they have. They're going to lose the ability because they're not going to have the operating capital to bring back in materials in the quantities that they need to restart production when materials become available. So, you know, just this you know 6 month or 12-month period of stagnation is really going to choke
It's
off
rough.
some of
It's rough.
the really small guys.
A perfect example of that's going to be Mako's acquisition of Duncan. You know, I'm not going to pretend that I know all of the dealings and goings on there, but it's not a coincidence that Duncan folded shortly after the shutdown for COVID. They just, you know, they can't do it. You know, you're the mom and pop side. You know, Clayscapes is a pretty small company. We have, you know, including our teachers, I think we have like 10 employees. You know, we're mom and pop. You know, we're little guys. We're the little guys. And so, you know, it is, but being little also gives us flexibility. And so when there was the shutdown, we were able to pivot to a more retail, more online sales to cover up for the loss of the school business that we had. And so we find ourselves in another position like that, where it's not getting better and people are upset. We need to change the way we handle things so that people aren't as upset. And so we're working through that, you know, and everybody's working through that. You know, everybody's doing the best they can, I think. So there was a spot. Yeah, I don't know. I have a whole thing, a list here. Let me see here.
You got your list?
I do. I have a whole list.
Uh,
There's all kinds of things
so I got a material question for you before you hit your list. Question on red iron oxide: is Spanish red iron oxide becoming the common one now when making glazes?
So Spanish red iron oxide has been the industry standard for a while, for I would say over 20 years. When you see a recipe and it says red iron oxide, when you go to, if you call me up and ask for red iron oxide, you're going to get Spanish red iron oxide because that's just the industry standard. There is a red iron oxide and a Spanish red iron oxide, and they contain different amounts of iron. And so I've made the mistake back in the day when I was doing our glaze mixing and I had to put the red iron oxide in the mixer, the Spanish red in the mixer for our coastal blue, big, 150-pound batch of glaze, and I put in regular red iron oxide. We didn't know. I put it in, and then we put it in bags, and then we put it in the bucket and used it and said, why is all of the coastal blue coming out brown? Why is it coming out brown? Why is it coming out brown? Turns out I put the wrong iron in it, so we had to throw it all out. But it does make a difference. The Spanish red iron oxide is more than likely 9 out of 10 times when you go in and get iron, that's what you're getting. Oh man, how could I forget? Not only do we have material shortages, we have like plastic shortages. When all of these companies that make plastic jars and little plastic doodads for all of the different things that we buy, they pivoted hard to making PPE, protective equipment for COVID, masks, gloves, face shields, gowns for the hospitals and the nursing and healthcare industry. That hasn't all come back yet. So, Mako may be sitting there with, a vat full of glaze and they can't sell it because there's no plastic jars. I know Tucker Clay, for example, we got a number of pallets from Tucker and there were no cardboard boxes. It was clay in bags, no boxes, because there's a shortage. There was no paper, there's no cardboard boxes. So the things that we buy are also supplied. The things that we buy are also inside other things. And those other things also have shortages. So, it's not necessarily always, retail. It could be that they just don't have enough boxes or bags. They're just not available. And we've seen a decrease in the quality of, say, plastic bags that the pugs come in. I've had a number of customers say, like, oh, my bag of clay popped. And it's just because they're using a lower quality bag because that's what they can get. So there's all that. I found that out by looking at my notes. Let's see. Whilst I look at my notes, are there any questions?
Yeah. So here's one, and I actually know a bit about this too because of our rolling pins. But Penny says I can find product, but the shipping cost is frequently more than the product. Is there a different way to order that is cheaper on the shipping? And so
No.
Drew hit it with right there. Basically there's a handful of shipping providers that can ship the size and weight things that we move around in the clay industry, in the ceramic industry. Most of the stuff we ship is heavy. And they charge a certain amount to do it. And if you've got a product that has got $3 of profit in it for you to be able to stay in business, and the cost to ship it goes up $5, you have no choice but to pass that on to the customer.
You have to.
And you can do one of two things. You can either bury the increase in the price of the product, or you can continue doing what you should do, and that's just charge people the shipping costs that you're being charged.
And so we are really, and I got this from my dad. He used to be Back in the day when we first moved to New York, and he was doing pottery, he was doing the white tent festivals. He was a potter, and his day job was he was a shipping manager for a 500,000 square foot grocery warehouse, 500,000 square foot building, and everything that came in and went out he had to be scheduled with trucking companies and freight companies and logistics companies, and all of those things have rates and prices and negotiations. And so, we try to negotiate with our freight companies the best possible price for you guys. When there's no such thing as free freight. There's no such thing as free shipping. You're paying for that shipping one way or another. And so we just like to have a policy of, we're just very upfront with what the price rates are. When you order a kiln and it comes in, I go and get a freight price. And then whatever that freight price is, that's the price that you guys pay. We don't mark it up because we want to be upfront with you guys. This is what it's going to cost to get you the things that you want. And there's no controlling that. There's no negotiating. After a certain point, the price is the price. And so when we work in an industry that different freight has different class, for example. So a kiln has a class of 110. It takes up a lot of space, but it's light, but it's expensive and valuable. Therefore, it has a high class, 110. Something very fragile, much, much more fragile. If you had like a big porcelain vase, huge, say, a big porcelain vase needs to be crated, needs all kinds of packaging, that may have a class of 300 because it's super fragile. Clay is dirt. It's heavy, it's dense, it doesn't take up as much space. It has a class of 50, of 55. And that freight class allows you to get a better freight rate. So the rates that we pay are lower because it's not likely to get damaged. If you bang it, it's not going to hurt it, that kind of thing. I don't remember where I was going with this. No, but it's a low freight class. But what that also means is it's not as valuable, right? Clay is close to $1 a pound right now. If you were to buy 50 pounds, one box, that's not that much. And so what happens is when you say the shipping costs more than the product, it's not that the shipping costs more than the product. That doesn't devalue the product. That just is the shipping, right? My $5 item is still worth $5, even though it costs $12 to send it across the state. And so when we say the shipping's more expensive than the ingredients, the shipping's more expensive than the glaze, that is the case. And that doesn't reflect on the glaze. It's just, that's the way shipping is right now. And if you want it, you're going to have to pay it, unfortunately. And that's just, I don't know. It's just the way it is right now.
Yeah,
it sucks.
And so, follow-up question was, so for shipping, is it better to buy more at one time? And the answer to that is sometimes it works in your advantage, to your advantage.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't. So if you have,
that's where buying local can really work out for you. If you lived within 100-mile radius of Syracuse, New York, where we're located, and you buy 50 pounds of clay, I can send it to you in a U.S. flat rate box for $22. I can send that same box anywhere in the country for $22. If you buy 500 pounds of clay, that's 10 boxes. That's $22 times 10, $220. If you live nearby, within a few hours of us, I can send you a pallet of clay up to 2,400 pounds for $125. No matter how much clay you buy, up to 2,400 pounds, the shipping will be a flat rate. And that's because we've negotiated those rates with our local trucking company. And so it just depends, right? How far is the material has to travel? How heavy is it? How many trucking companies does it have to go through? You know, it's not like I send a trucking company from here to Utah with a kiln. That kiln is going to get handed from one trucking company to the next, to the next, to the next before it gets delivered. It's going to go through this whole chain of partner carriers. And that's just, you know, the supply chain. That's the way it's working right now, semi-working.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking for, see if we've got any other ones. I think that's about
There's
it. You got some stuff on your list?
I go down my list. There's a lot of things. I wrote this list yesterday. There's, you know, like we got a low review yesterday, for example. I hate getting low reviews, but they're opportunities for us to grow, right? And so yesterday I was a little agitated, and so I wrote down just all the things, and I'm, you know, these are all the things that people don't know about. Like, how could they not know? And you have to take a step back and breathe and, you know, adapt. You know, we're all about solutions. And so we're working on it. We're trying to adapt. There are some things that folks get used to, that when we're, as a small company that's growing, you grow into certain things that you just can't do anymore. Stuff that you used to do that you can't do anymore. You know, it's difficult for me I have a hard time relaxing because I'm always connected to my customer base. I get in trouble a lot from my wife for answering work calls or work stuff when I'm outside of work. But it's, you know, what we want to do. You know, so as we grow, I'm going to have to do less and less of that, right? And it makes it difficult to want to, like, I want to post pictures of, say, some of my pottery that I've made. You know, I've made a little bit of progress. I'm pretty proud. I want to share that with everybody. I can't do that because I get, you know, sometimes I'll get a post or a private message from somebody, and, you know, the sentiment that comes across is, what are you doing your stuff when I don't have my stuff yet? Those are real conversations. When I talk about the culture of consumerism overall in the country right now, and how the clay industry has not caught up. You know, we're dragging behind. It's clay. Clay is heavy, right? So we got to drag these boxes of clay into the present climate. And so that toxic marketplace can be a lot. It can be discouraging. And so we always want to take a step back and breathe and remember why we do it. You know, we do it because we love it. We come in to work every day, and, you know, we say, at least I say, like, it doesn't feel like work sometimes. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? I don't remember who said that, but it's a quote from someone. And we love what we do here. I love what we do here. We love you guys. We love everything about this. We just need to breathe and go with the flow and make the changes that we need to make, and and try and be understanding that there are a lot of things going on that are just beyond our control. And as consumers, sometimes we need to remember that. You know, I need Amico glazes. We need Amico.
We all do.
Holy cow, we need Amico. So,
so here's a Rio question for you. Kathleen has some red iron oxide from about 20 years ago and has no idea which one it is. Is there a way that she can figure it out?
Well, no. Even so, I will say, if you have old ingredients, it doesn't matter what that ingredient is. If you have red iron oxide from 20 years ago, that red iron oxide came from a part of the mine that no longer exists. And so we say, cobalt, iron is not as bad because iron is a lot more forgiving than some of the other ingredients. Cobalt and copper, I will see sometimes 2 to 3 changes a year in what they look like in the raw state. So to go back 20 years, that cobalt would be completely different. We won't use old ingredients because you can't replicate the results that you get with them because those ingredients are gone. And even though it's the same ingredient, even though it's iron oxide, it's still 20-year-old iron oxide. And that iron oxide is going to be different. I'm not saying it's going to be bad, totally. I mean, if you've got a glaze recipe that calls for iron oxide, put it in there. Do a test. Do a 100-gram test. If you like it, use it. Just know that you can't, once that iron's gone, you can't make it anymore. You would have to do more testing with current iron and see what it looks like. I suppose you could make a 100-gram batch of a white glaze and make another one here. And then that 100-gram batch, you put the old iron in. And this 100-gram batch, you put the new iron in, same amount, fire them next to each other in the kiln. That is going to be your best way to figure that out.
Yeah. And here's what I've been thinking about for a couple minutes now is any suggestions on what we can do now. And so other than being patient for things.
You can only. I also understand that there's a certain amount of time that it's like, okay, right. Well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And the only suggestion that I have is. As a distributor, we are going to make some changes. That's all. I know you guys with your rolling pins had to make some changes. It may be that, due to the amount of feedback that we have gotten, we get all kinds of feedback, good and bad. I love when we get feedback. We may have to go to changing how we sell things. If it's not in stock, it may not be available. I always like being able to say it's not in stock, but I can put it on order for you. And then when it comes in, we can send it to you. That's a service that I think has set us apart in the past. That even though it's something that's not available right now, it's not in stock right now, it will be eventually. And we will get it for you. We put it on order, and when it comes in, we'll send it to you. We may not be able to do that anymore. It may just have to be that if it's in stock, we can send it to you. If it's not in stock, you're gonna have to call back later because the feedback has gone from the teeter-totter goes both ways, right? And so when people are waiting 3, 4, 5 months and they have to call 4 or 5 times to, figure out where the heck their stuff is, only to be told still not in stock, that is, I understand how frustrating that is. That is frustrating. I need this glaze for a custom order. Well, this glaze has rutile in it, and it's in Australia, and it's not going to be here anytime soon. You know, that's frustrating. We have no control over that. We can only control, um, you know, our little tip of the iceberg here, right? We don't have any control over the supply, and so how the customer accesses that tip of the iceberg may have to change. That's all. And if it doesn't work, we adjust again. We pivot and make the best decision that's going to make the most people happy. So that's all we can do from a supply side. From a consumer side, I honestly don't know. I know that we stock enough of our Clayscapes glazes that we have access to the raw ingredients to make our Clayscapes glazes. We keep a really close eye on those ingredients. And for the amount of business that we are currently doing, we are able to keep up. So we have glazes available. There's a difference between lead time and processing time. And as a small business, we only have so many resources to hire employees. And so at the moment, we have a couple people that do all the order intake, and then they track it all. And they have to figure out what's back ordered and what's not back ordered, and print orders and ship it. And so that processing time, especially when there's a promotion, becomes longer. And then after all those orders are processed, then there's a lead time for shipping. And we only have 1 or 2 employees that can do the shipping because, there's all sorts of stuff going on around here. I need to be able to, if I'm shipping in the warehouse, I can't talk to anybody about kilns. And kiln sales have gone up because people are staying home and they want to do stuff at home. And so, everybody's spread a little thin. Things take a little bit longer. And so as consumers, I think the only thing we can do is just be a little more understanding. We're working with you. If you're frustrated or, angry that your order has been taking so long, believe me, we're just as frustrated. Just give us a call. One of us will eventually get back to you. We're working through it.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is for what you can do now is, you've got, so many hours that you want to spend in your studio doing pottery, right? So now,
Right.
But you have limited supplies and you may not be able to replenish them. So now is a good time to maybe try your hand at some of those processes with your pottery that take a little longer.
Yeah.
Try one of those. Try some of the carving techniques that makes it take twice as long to make a cup as it used to, or
Right.
try some
Right.
of those watercolor pottery glazing techniques that is going to make what you have for underglaze last 3 or 4 times as long.
Absolutely.
Now's a great time to try some of those things that maybe are going to push your comfort zone. It's going to make you take longer, but you're still going to get your time in the studio. You're going to learn some stuff, and you're going to stretch your materials maybe a little bit. So it's a good time to try some of those things, I think.
If you're wheel throwing, everybody, if you're a wheel thrower, you've got your bucket of water and you put your, all the clay that comes off when you're throwing, it goes into the bucket of water. Take that bucket of slop, take that bucket of slip and set it to the side and create a slip out of it. You can take the water off the top, blend it with an immersion blender, use a jiffy mixer, like a drill. You blend that up. You can put it through a sieve if you want, a very coarse sieve, like a 40 mesh would be fine. And you can do slip decoration. You can have mason stain and add it to your slip to create a colored slip. It's the same clay body. It's got the same shrinkage rate. And you use that slip as a decorating slip. You can use oxides. If you don't have access to that clay, to the glazes that you want, maybe now is the time to experiment with texture on the outside of your piece. And then an oxide wash where, the oxides are available. They're very easy. It's literally just add water and you do your wipe away. The world of clay has so many different options that, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
We'll be okay. Like you said, do some carving, do some anything, on-goes, any of that stuff.
Yeah, and Colleen had a question: is there a difference between Darvan and Darvan 7? And I know the answer to that
Yes.
one. The answer is
Yeah,
yes. There's a significant difference. For especially when you see people using the Darvan 7 to make the brown speedball less gritty, or you have a material that you're needing to do that with, you want to use Darvan 7.
Right.
There's
So
another one.
Darvan 7 is for I think it's the 7 is for iron bearing, and Darvan 811 is for lighter. So if you're slip casting or using decorating slip and it's porcelain or it's a white stoneware, you're going to use the Darvan 811. If you've got a dark brown clay like the 75 or terracotta, you'll use the Darvan 7.
All right.
Which are both available.
Both available, but you want to make sure you're using the right one at
The
the
right
right
one,
time.
yes.
Or your results will not be good, and you'll have materials that are no longer very useful.
Yeah.
Which now is not the time to make our materials less useful.
Yeah, we need to squeeze every last drop out of what we got. Oh man.
All right. I think we're out of time.
I don't even know what time it is.
It's a little after 6, so we're
okay.
a little
I
over.
have time. If people have questions, I can answer more questions. I pretty much covered everything. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
and there's more. There's so much to it. It's such a huge lumbering monstrosity of a process to get from here to here to here. And I'm, this is very, it's a very brief kind of synopsis of what's going on. So.
Yeah, so I think we'll let you go and get some dinner. You've already had a full day. So thanks a bunch, Drew.
That's okay. I fixed the kiln today. So,
I shipped a lot of rolling pins today.
Well, that's good news.
That's good news.
Sure there'll be some happy customers.
All the orders from Clayshare Day, minus about 5 that those pins just finished being made.
Still
and
in the machine.
They're in their oil soak phase right now, so they should be ready to ship tomorrow. So tomorrow I should be able to put them together and get them out the door. So if you haven't seen your shipping confirmation today and you still had pins waiting for pins from us, then you should see it tomorrow when I get those last handful of pins done. Well, thanks a bunch, Drew. We appreciate you helping out tonight.
We absolutely adore you guys. We love our Clayshare family, and we appreciate you. We appreciate each and every one of you, Jess and Kevin, as well as all of you guys listening. Have a vested interest in everyone's mutual success, and we just want to be here for you. So reach out to me if you have questions. There's no small question. I just helped somebody with her first kiln firing. I expect to get another phone call when she needs to fire her glaze kiln. Don't feel like I'm on the other line rolling my eyes at you, because I'm not. That's what we're here for. We want everybody to be happy and successful.
And we do too. Thanks a bunch, Drew, and we'll see you again soon.
See you soon, guys.
All right, everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Thanks for spending some time with us, and we will see you all again soon.